All right, guys, you hear me? See if it's on.
Or
Hello, people there. Oh, I have viewers on. All right. So yeah, I took a little bit of a drive, everyone. Wait for people to come on in, uh, and I drove for 15 hours to to a place, 7.5 hours down, 7.5 hours back. You know, just for a little event. And what I was thinking about while I was doing this drive is something that while we're in school, we all think about this thing is like, how is any of this going to apply to real life where we're in school? Also, the title of the stream is wrong. It needs to be School Sucks Boy 4. Oh, I should try something out while I'm doing this. Let's do this. Let's do this. So there you go. We have a little bit of a. You can watch some 1940s abstract art going on there. In a Sunday evening, you got shit to do on a Sunday evening. So now, upon leaving high school and college, I've come to the conclusion that what I thought is like, how is any of this going to apply to real life? I've come to the conclusion that I was basically correct. You know, I happen to use algebra a little bit, but most people don't. Now, when listening to testimonies of people who leave cults, i.e., like small cults, things that are today labeled cults, a pattern I found is that before dropping the doctrine, they leave the organization. Like Scientologists in particular, they usually don't immediately drop the doctrine. They leave the church, and then once they're out, then they start disbelieving in Scientology stuff, right? And there's actually a problem with Scientology. There's a problem with Scientology that they have called squirrels. They have squirrel Scientology, which is basically independent Scientology. Scientology not connected to the church and stuff. So, from a purely practical and kind of a selfish standpoint, deconstructing the education system as an organization is, you know, in its first instance, much easier, right? The average Joe is much more likely to accept the idea that the school system is kind of systemically abusive and corrupt, or even that the idea of that high school itself is a bad idea. They're going to be much more, you know, receptive to that than they are to the idea that the doctrine is false. Got a bunch of people riding around in their cars here. So, and one thing that always amazed me is this idea that people have, especially, I don't know, they're just not here. Oh well. One thing that always kind of amazed me was this idea that teachers are underpaid, right? So you have kids who spend like 12 years at minimum listening to teachers tell them things, right? Now, imagine if you grew up with plumbers who, like, in addition to doing plumbing, right, they also spoke about, like, the importance of state-mandated plumbing. Yeah, if I put a notice on YouTube, I get more viewers, but I didn't, so. All right, well, they'll also speak about the importance of, you know, plumbing as, like, the spine of civilization, right? Like, imagine if they were told all that, spending years with plumbers, you know, and after all this, they conclude, wow, plumbers are really underpaid given how critically important their work is, right? The water of life, the greatest cleanser, bringing up anecdotes about how catastrophic poor plumbing can be. Yes, this is the esoteric stream. You get to watch abstract art films from the 30s, 40s, and 50s. So, and let's say you do this. Let's say you spend all this time with plumbers, working with plumbers, and then you go away from that going, wow, plumbers are really underpaid. Can you believe it? Plumbers are really underpaid. It's like really cool, huh? So, and the reality, of course, is that, if plumbing goes sideways, you're in a world full of shit. If the school system were to disappear tomorrow, the effects of that would probably just be positive. Yes. So there was an amazing book, and I have it linked in the Telegram. It's a book called An Empirical Introduction to Youth by Joseph Bronsky. Now, the title sounds really boring. It sounds like some dumb textbook or something. I Hate Negroes, No Cozy Silent Hill 2 OST. Yeah, that's you got the audio on that for a live thing is kind of, you have to sort of manage the audio for the ups and the downs, and here it's kind of like, whatever. So anyway, so an empirical introduction to youth by Joseph Bronsky. And what's great about this book is that he actually recognizes IQ. He's not like some IQ denier. So I heard some people say this is Paul's brother. So, and the point he makes is that for most of human existence, people were basically adults by around age 14. If they had some kind of professional training, that started around 14 to become, say, a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. So this idea of adulthood at 18, this isn't something that's like really obvious or natural, right? It's something that's very abnormal and fairly recent. He talks about well-regarded lawyers and doctors in Rome who are under 20, right? Now, perhaps medical knowledge today is too complex for that to be possible, but it doesn't matter because such things would be impossible anyway, since there's no system to really allow for someone to become a doctor by 18, even if they had the ability. The Telegram is linked. So, like, there's no institutional pathway outside of homeschooling to allow for that kind of rapid progression, and perhaps not even then, given all the extraneous other classes that you're required to take in those things. So, like, what I'm talking about here is mandatory schooling after about age 12, right, or before the end of puberty. And one thing that's interesting in Bronsky's book is that he lays out the rise of mandatory public schools, that this was a political process, right? There were do-gooder organizations getting in bed with politicians, and there were professional associations that like this. A lot of bankers like this. They like the public school system, and he gives reasons for why that is. For example, instead of having companies have to pay for like professional training, just have it be paid for by people, right? That they pay to get the skills that they need for the job. Now, since then, it has morphed away from practical skills, but now it feels like a 2017 AltHype video. So the thing is, this was initially unpopular. It's linked in the Telegram. An Empirical Introduction to Youth by Joseph Bronsky. And so these public schools, they were initially quite unpopular. There was no great mass movement for mandatory schools. Localities, they had their own schools. Thank you very much. And they tailored to the kinds of things people actually did and needed wherever and whenever they were. So, yeah, esoteric art for plumbers. So another thing that was interesting about this that Bronsky went through was he was talking about is he did a whole lot of like deconstruction of this idea that the adolescent brain is like incomplete, right? That it develops to age 24, and then that's when it's like mature, and that's just a complete myth. And he looks at all sorts of psychometric data that says no, the brain's performance on most tests actually peak at around age 22, but like they're at about the level of a 30-year-old by the time they're 16. Okay, and this is true on like, I mean, first off, like IQ tests, but all sorts of like no go tests, like pattern recognition tests. So their like quantitative psychometric decision-making abilities are basically fully formed by around age 16, right? So this idea that, it's not fully myelinated or anything. He also goes into like the myelination of the brain to say that no, they're fully myelinated by about age 16. So what else? So this doesn't, of course, mean that like a 16-year-old will make just as good decisions as a 26-year-old, right? So like we're not discounting experience, like life experience or whatever. But you have to consider the environmental effect, right? Because what has a 16-year-old in the U.S. today been through? Like he spent 10 years in a kind of prison, right? And not just any prison, but one where he's forced to do what are actually useless tasks for 7 to 10 hours a day, right? And where he's castigated for not carrying them out with enough zeal, right? So I think part of the reason that high schoolers may have poor reasoning abilities is because they've been driven insane by their environment, and the thing is, like I've worked jobs, and yes, a job can be mind-numbing and a job can be no fun, but guess what? You're doing something that's no fun so you can get paid, and then you go do things that are fun. There's a purpose to that, right? Even if you're just flipping burgers and taking orders, well, that's a real task with a real goal. There's some purpose to that, if not a particularly high one, right? And I think what drives employees insane is when a manager gets a bug up their butt and has them do like extraneous tasks that are unnecessary for the actual job. When I had a job as on-site tech support, by the way, a job where they actually required a computer science degree, supposedly. It required a computer science degree for this job, which I didn't have. But I just lied, and I knew someone who worked there who got me in, so, and I did fine. It did not require a computer science degree. Let's go to the next thing here. What was I saying? Computer science degree. So, and I did fine. Everyone was happy. They'd have a problem, they'd send it to me. Oh, God damn it, it's the wrong bad size. Come here. No, not you. The other one. You guys need to see this. You guys need to see whatever the hell this is. But yeah, so I did fine at that job. And, and I learned a lot about PowerPoint and Excel and kept track of all the inventory and all the releases and stuff. The way they were leasing the computers was absolutely insane at this job. So, but what drove me insane was this gay program we had called Track. Not abstract enough, 2 out of 10. Track was an inventory tracking software that looked like it was from the 1990s. And that's not a bad thing. But the problem is that it was very cumbersome and none of the tech support guys actually used it. Right? We all used just a master Excel file to keep track of everything. But we had to use Track because idiot management thought it was good for some reason. It was slow, impossible to find anything, had a horrendous search system that never found what you wanted. It was terrible, right? We had to put everything into Track and then use a master Excel file when we actually wanted to find something. And I think that's the kind of stuff that makes employees go insane, right? This excessive process that has nothing to do with the actual job. Okay, and so like, what's high school? Well, no pay, zero pay. You get nothing. Right? The teachers get paid. You don't. Fuck you. And if any, and does any of the work you do mean anything? Right? Are hamburgers being produced by any of this? What you're doing in high school? Are French fries being manufactured? Right? Are people's computer problems getting fixed? No, none of this is actually happening. So imagine a job where you get no pay other than room and board, and whatever stipend your two minders give out to you, or whatever gifts they give you. Say thank you, right? You're working 10 hours a day, doing the high school and the homework and the extracurriculars or whatever. And then for no pay but room and board, and then you get little gifts from your minders. And then be thankful about that, right? Thank them for this gift. Right? And of course, your work consists of writing things down on pieces of paper that nobody will ever see except for like one person, and they'll quickly forget about it. And it's about subjects that others have chosen for you, and you get graded on those writings. The subjects are all over the places. Old books, crazy math you'll never use, which, is a suspicion that most people have had. It's like, I'm never going to use this math. And yes, about 80% of the time it's true. Now, I use algebra like incidentally, but most people aren't ever going to use algebra. And besides, I would have learned algebra on my own anyway. So pointless work, virtually no pay, right? Hall passes and raise your hand if you have to take a piss. And, not only do you spend 7 hours a day on site and fuck you about like a lunch break, it's 7 hours, okay? And then you have homework on top of that, all right? And, which varies depending on how big of a butthole the teachers are, right? Who view themselves as educators instead of the reality, which is closer to that of prison wardens who like to abuse their authority for their pet topic, right? And all the moral bleeding, if you don't get good grades or don't do extracurriculars, right? And so there's basically no time for life, and so it's terrible. Right? And so you have kids who spend all this time in this situation, and then it's like, oh, they're kind of crazy, they make bad decisions. It's like, well, think about if you were in that situation, right? So but I think the more aware of it you are, the more insane high school kind of really is, right? And then, wow, high school kids go off and do stupid things. Shocking. Okay, so another thing that I was reading, where is this? It's right here. So this is the myth of generalized learning that was in Bronsky's book. And I was very glad that he covered it, because it's kind of a core argument for most of what's taught in schools, and that's the myth of like generalized learning or learning how to think. I recall back in like the olden times, there was a lot of emphasis on teaching Greek and Latin because it exercised the brain muscles, right? Yeah, if you fuck up in high school, it will set you back significantly. That's true. But he brought up an example that I hadn't heard of, which is one of air traffic controllers. And I have this quoted here, so let me just read that here. It says, being an air traffic controller is not easy. At the heart of the job is a cognitive ability called situational awareness that involves the continuous extraction of environmental information and the integration of this information with prior knowledge to form a coherent mental picture. Vast amounts of fluid information must be held in the mind, and, under extreme pressure, life or death decisions are made across rotating 24-hour work schedules. In the 1960s, an interesting series of experiments was done on air traffic controllers' mental capacities. Researchers wanted to explore if they had a general enhanced ability to keep track of a number of things at once, or whether that skill could be applied to other situations. After observing them at their work, researchers gave the air traffic controllers a set of generic memory-based tasks with shapes and colors. The extraordinary thing was that, when tested on these skills outside of their own area of expertise, the air traffic controllers did no better than anyone else. Their remarkably sophisticated cognitive abilities did not translate beyond their professional area. As the 1960 studies on air traffic controllers suggested, to be good in a specific domain, you need to know a lot about it. It's not easy to translate those skills to other areas. This is even more so with the kinds of complex and specialized knowledge that accompanies much professional expertise. As later studies found, the more complex the domain, the more important domain-specific knowledge. This non-translatability of cognitive skill is well established in psychological research and has been replicated many times. Other studies, for example, have shown that the ability to remember long strings of digits don't transfer to the ability to remember long strings of letters. Surely we're not surprised to hear this, for we all know people who are clever in their professional lives, yet often seem to make stupid decisions in their personal lives. So that is a pretty extreme example. In fact, that is a greater degree of specialization of cognitive abilities than even I would have predicted. For example, air traffic controllers not being able to do whatever tests they were doing here. Something about the shapes and colors. And of course, there's another thing Bronsky brought up was data on early intervention programs, really like the intensive education programs like the Abasterian Project, the Perry Preschool Project, that try to raise IQ. And the short of it is that they're able to raise IQ maybe 3 or 4 points, but the gains, as we know, are hollow for G, and this is going to be the thing about the G factor, but G is real, and G is what we really care about, not IQ per se. And these IQ gains go away after intervention anyway. And there are people, of course, they hate IQ because it's a meme. I need to read. Why is the stream not renaming? I'll rename the stream after I go through my notes, wherever I was. So they hate IQ because they think IQ is a meme or because blacks or whatever. But if you actually look at an IQ test, it's an extremely generalized test, and a lot of myths people think that information caused it, race IQ gap, or information and vocabulary caused the racial IQ gaps. Those are just completely bogus, right? If you remove information and vocabulary sections from IQ tests, racial gaps actually get bigger, right? For example, blacks do relatively better on information and vocabulary subtests than they do on the more abstract questions like spatial rotation or picture completion or things like that. And IQ tests have just been proven, right, more than any psychological or sociological metric, to correspond not just to empirical task performances like on a job, but also subjective perception of intelligence over time. I talked about this before in another article, how when you put people into discussion groups and ask how smart they think the other people in the discussion group are, these correlate with IQ at around 0.4 on average over the average amount of times that they use. But what's more important is that this correlation gets stronger the more the groups are together. Which may be why teachers can almost perfectly estimate the relative IQ scores of their students. Teachers almost always, I should say, they can accurately estimate the relative IQ scores of their students. Teachers systemically overestimate the raw IQ scores of their students, but in terms of the IQs of the students relative to each other, teachers are dead on in terms of the relation. And it's not a function of IQ and grades, right? Teachers are able to tell a high IQ, low performing student and realize that while grades and IQ correlate, they are not the same. And schooling does not raise IQ in any meaningful way, right? So everything we know, the idea that transference of learning, right, or transference, learning how to think, is about 99% bunkum, right? If you're not using the thing that you're learning, it's not teaching you how to think. That's a complete myth. Just as an aside, this is another personal anecdote. When I was in college, I I was taking the calculus series, and I actually took it out of order. Right, I actually somehow ended up taking Calc 2 before taking Calc 1, and I remember the first day they were showing the integral, right, the S, and I was looking at it and I raised my hand. I was like, what does that S mean? Right, in the first day of Calc 2. But it didn't matter because, you know, I had to, it was a little tough at the beginning. I had to sort of catch up, but that was basically stuff that you were taught at the very end of Calc 1, and Calc 1 is mostly just complex algebra, basically. So it wasn't really that big of a deal, but that kind of stuck with me. It's like, oh no, you need to take math in like the right series, right? And if you get a C on, like, you know, algebra 1, you know, you're going to really struggle with algebra 2 or something. And it's just not true at all. It's just not true at all. And that's kind of a little specific example. Even within like the, you know, the math series, even within that, where you think like the transfer of knowledge is going to be as direct as can possibly be, like even that's not true at all, right? People get lower grades at the lower levels and then get higher grades at the higher levels just because they try harder or whatever. So even like something as tight as that, there's like there's no transference, right? Except for like actual real things. This video is the wrong size. Keeps changing resolution on me as it goes from video to video. This is actually an advertisement here. There we go. So, yeah. And on top of that, something I pointed out in my authorities book thing was that you basically forget everything you know if you're not using it after school. And I talked about like knowledge decay for economists, and these are people who have like degrees in that thing, that was like their chosen like thing to study or whatever. And in my book, I was mainly focused on PhDs because I'm looking at sort of the highest levels of authority because that's what people cite in papers. But like, I don't know, do any of you remember the periodic table? Like, do you remember how to find the area under a curve? Like, I don't. I mean, if I wanted to, I'd just look it up for the 2 or 3 times in my life that I'd actually need to know that. But for most people, it would be 0 times, right? So yeah, and here's another thing that Bronsky writes, and this is a direct quote from his book. He says, some people might think math sticks more easily once it's learned, but one study found that most people forget about half of the algebra and geometry they learn in 5 years, and almost everything in 25 years. So most 40-year-olds effectively quit school after 7th grade. And he says, my own life confirms this. By 8th grade, my parents were hopeless when it came to understanding my math homework, despite the fact that both of them have college degrees and fine GPAs. So yeah, that math teacher who really wanted you to learn calculus, like, he was a misguided arsehole, right? He's just a butt, right? He's not doing good things. He's not helping you. What he's doing is he's getting a paycheck and inflicting his hobby on you. In a sane world, right, math teacher man would be recognized as a guy with a math hobby and wouldn't have any ability to force you to play along in like his little kabuki theater. So, IMO, if you're arguing for knowledge decay, you are arguing for non-applicability. Kind of. Yeah, it's true. If you learned something, this is not working how I thought it would work. Did we already see this one? The one? Hey, we already saw this one. Why is it doing this again? All right, let's do Viking Eggling. There we go. So, okay. Another thing we'll look at, I brought up here, is the myth of promoting technological advancement. So like, I mean, this is more of like an unconfirmed thing. It's kind of impossible to test. Is this idea that the current level of schooling is needed for technological advancement. Now, measuring technological progress is going to be very difficult because by its very nature, it's an unstandardized thing. What happened after World War II? You know, there was a huge percentage spike in people going to college. Now, did this correspond to a massive technological innovations, say 10 years later, right after you start getting these degree men out in the field? You know, and keep in mind, even if you did find that, it wouldn't establish causation, even if it were true. If there was some spike in technological progress, say by the 1960s, once these degree men start doing like the research. Because the problem is, like, a country with smarter people will, all things being equal, have more excess resources to waste on stupid things. And if all this colleging is actually stupid beyond a certain point, then smarter countries will be able to waste more on it than countries with stupider people who can't afford all this stuff, who can't afford, for example, sending black women to college. So, you know, and this is not an argument on the individual. Like, maybe it makes sense for you as an individual to go to college, right? To get that sticker, to get those employers to pay you more. Maybe it's worth it, maybe not, but of course it's, you know, it's less worth it than it was in the past. And you're taking a risk by not learning some useful skill right out of high school and perhaps going into debt. So, but let's start with the first thing, which was that 81% of adults report never using algebra in their jobs. So that's like 8th grade. So we could cut out 81% of the population from high school, right? Shut down a ton of high schools, and to where only 19% of people are going to high school. Now, if you're taking Algebra 1 in high school, though, if you're like, well, no, you need to go to high school to learn Algebra 1, well, no, you probably shouldn't be learning Algebra 1, and you probably shouldn't be going to high school if you're taking Algebra 1 in high school. So, and the argument against liberal arts in colleges that, like, well, I mean, that's part of the overall argument against the narrative, right? That is saying that, like, the hegemonic cult, particularly in regards to history and psychology, right? Sociology being kind of an in-between history and psychology, is so overwhelmingly wrong and awful that the fewer people who learn about it, the better, right? That would be the argument against liberal arts in college. And just having fewer people go to college would help reduce that damage. So basically, the argument against the narrative is, as it happens incidentally, kind of an argument against the fields of history and to some extent psychology. Sociology would just go along into the trash bin by association, right? Since it's a mishmash of the two. So if your history is wrong and if your psychology is wrong, then your sociology is going to be wrong because sociology just plays around with those elements. But yeah, you know, when dealing with sort of the hegemonic cult of NATO, of the NATO world today, which, because it doesn't name itself, is given a variety of names by its critics, you know, the globalists or liberals or whatever, you have to deconstruct it the way all cults are deconstructed, right? You first attack the cultic organization, which means attacking kind of the abusive nature of that organization, right? Such as like high school, right? The high school psych torture camps, you know, and all and the different manner of abuses done by universities. Like universities are abusive, but in a different way. One, they take a whole bunch of cash from you. That's one form of abuse that should not be overlooked. So, I mean, what's difficult is that this hegemonic cult has gotten around a lot of the normal safeguards that people have against religion by just not calling themselves anything in particular, but just by like presenting themselves as reality itself. But when you have a reality itself that you have to train people to see, and you're sort of dealing with unending resistance from people who don't have this trained eye, and the greater the influence this new reality have, the worse all metrics of happiness and well-being tend to become. People having fewer kids, committing suicide, being more depressed, and now you're at outright, decline in wealth, right? Doing all the college, all the research, all the Reddit, right? And you're having absolute declines in wealth to where millennials just can't afford homes, right? And where none of the solutions to social inequality ever work, right? To the extent you believe they were a problem in the first place, the point is that the things that like sort of the board cares about, sees as a problem, and is trying to solve, the thing that this thing does never works, and when they never work and it looks and all the things I said before, maybe consider that you're dealing with a religion, right? And like what are called conservatives, like they're actually right. They would actually be right to not name or concretize themselves, aside from like the vague spectral label of right wing or conservative, because there's no structure to conservatism, right? There's no levels that you pass through to get to the higher levels of truth professed to you, right? And this professed truth becoming a solid thing, right? As a phenomenon, like all conservatism is, it's like degrees of opposition to the hegemonic cult at this place and time. And like if you just think like that, just think that for a moment, suddenly all the weirdness and definitions, they fall into place, right? And the fact that like shit libs are more lockstep than conservatives, there's more infighting among conservatives or whatever. Well, it's not infighting among conservatives because conservatism isn't like a concretized thing in the way the shit lib Borg is, right? A religion that refuses to name itself, or if it does name itself, they aren't serious names like progressive or something. It's not the same as like a black who votes Democrat or whatever, who aren't necessarily on board with the newest and greatest ideas that come from the church. It's not, this isn't the same as votes Democrat, because the Democrat Party can't win elections with just shit libs. They need to gin up blacks on race hate, and they're trying to gin up Hispanics on kind of ethno-racial hate of non-Hispanic whites. And, this is always done through sacred tribulations and blood libels. Go away, Telegram. The lynching myths. It was a misspelling, but I decided to keep it. The idea that segregation is somehow oppressive.
Lena sent $5.07.
Oh, okay. Thanks for the chat. Thanks for the bucks. But yeah. So what was I talking about? So, like, we don't have any power to like eradicate this. But what we do have is the power to denormalize this and sort of, make it kind of recognized as abusive. You know what? I think VLC is on shuffle. It's on shuffle. That's the problem. I'll read the chat when I'm done from my notes here. But yeah, like, no, you weren't an idiot when you were 15. You were locked into like this asylum. And a sane person put in that place for so many years is going to go insane. I think if you took adults and you put them in high school, they would start acting like high school kids, right? They would start to go insane. And, when we talk about, and that's what's so bizarre about like, the idea argument against homeschooling. You need to go to high school in order to be properly socialized. But like, what are you being socialized by? Like, people who have no experience and have done nothing, and then they go, and as they're going to high school, they remain having no experience and not doing anything. They think they're doing something because they're doing a lot of work, right? They're doing a lot of assignments, or they're playing the sports or whatever.
Saxon Commander sent $5. Have you ever looked over the Sam Harris, Ezra Klein, race IQ affair from 2017 to 2018 about Charles Murray's The Bell Curve? I would love to know your take on that situation.
Hold on, let me read that again. Have you ever looked over the Sam Harris, Ezra Klein Race IQ affair in 2017 about Charles Murray's The Bell Curve? I would love to know your take on that situation. Was that when Sam Harris was basically? I didn't watch that far enough. I know Sam Harris was like. Did he say he was a hereditarian? I'm gonna look for Saxon Commander in the text chat to tell me about this. But I remember something about Sam Harris and. Wait, thank you. Sam Harris betrayed Murray. Did he? Interesting. I don't know if did he betray him in 2017, 2018. Well, Sam Harris, you have to keep in mind Sam Harris is trying to be like at a higher level of mainstream. But anyway. Yeah, Sam Harris was basically a hereditarian. Okay, and then Ezra Klein was saying, "How dare you?" And I don't know if Sam Harris held his ground or did whatever. But yeah, so this is something something that Stefan Molyneux said, that I cribbing from Stefan Molyneux, when he's talking about so parents hit their kids all the time. And what you think about that morally or whatever, Molyneux has this whole, or at least had this whole peaceful parenting thing, the when and the where and the what context of like hitting your kids, whatever. I'm not talking about that. But one thing Molyneux said was that he compared hitting your kid, like not just like spanking him or something, compared that to walking up to a guy in a wheelchair and just decking the guy in the wheelchair. And the trauma experienced by the guy in the wheelchair is going to be far less than what a child would experience by being like spanked for being bad. Because the guy in the wheelchair, like, yeah, getting decked sucks. Yeah, getting punched in the face sucks, right? Especially if they hit you right on your nose and get that stinging nose thing. But the thing is, the guy in the wheelchair, he doesn't, like, he's not internalizing that he got punched because he was bad, right? He got punched because some guy was like a mega turbo asshole. That's why he got punched, right? And that's kind of like the psychological torture of high school, I think, is like, if everyone realized it for what it was, then they'd recognize it as a bunch of stupid abuse, and that would kind of make it easier because you kind of just go through it, recognize it as abuse, and then move on, right? And like, I think like if you sort of buy into it, if you buy into it, like believing that you're actually bad if you don't, do well enough or go on the college track or do the lessons or whatever, like, and I'm thinking like when you recognize that the whole, like the oppression arc, right? The whole arc, like the singular narrative of slavery, segregation, colonialism, and now white privilege, the Holocaust, right? The whole oppression arc, the Holocaust, Nazi Germany, the whole oppression arc. If you recognize it's not true, then it's revealed as just kind of like an abusive tool. It's kind of a tool for abuse. It's powerful externally, and you're kind of like the guy in the wheelchair getting decked, right? But it's not ripping you up inside. Right? And what's so crazy is that you have all these shitlibs who cling to these beliefs that tell them how rotten they are for being white. And, they can say, no, it's more complicated than that. It's not being white, but it's just recognizing, blah. I'm not horrible for being white. It's more sophisticated than that. And they'll go down rabbit holes or whatever. But basically, you're bad for being white is what they believe. Now, some of them are just soulless and just cynically repeating what they think, that it'll give them power and clout. Those people are always going to exist, people who soullessly repeat what they think will give them power and clout. I'm thinking Vaush, right? I'm thinking that's him. I don't think he really believes much of anything, but the majority of shitlibs, they truly believe this shit. And, they don't see the rise of white privilege as just another, club to beat them with. that it's just something that's largely invented to manage like the failures to close the economic gaps that were supposed to be closed by all the affirmative action and equal access and stuff. Like black-white gaps were supposed to go away by now, and they haven't. And so you're getting more and more esoteric, exotic theories of oppression. But they see it as real, right? They truly believe it. So they're getting bashed by white privilege, like internally, far more than we are. Like the child being spanked, as opposed to the man in the wheelchair getting decked, right? Even though we're on the receiving ends of its external blows, but yeah. So any other payment method than Google Pay? Please get PayPal. Well, I'm banned from PayPal. So hold on, let me look at my dashboard here. So yeah, I can't do that right away.
J-Bar sent $5.
So. Oh, thanks, J-Bar. $5. So I can't do that right away, but I'll try to look at that. Subscribestar works just with banks. Yeah, I'll have to look at Entropy, but Subscribestar works with just banks, but I have to actually like manually check that to see. So, but yeah. But anyway, so that's sort of the opening monologue that I'm doing here. Yeah, that was the opening monologue, sort of about school sucks, and a cool book I read, and kind of a book report on that book that I read. Nick used Entropy. Yeah, I may have to look into Entropy. I thought that was just like a screen overlay thing, not an actual like payment processor. But yeah, I'd rather give you money than Zog. Well, if you want to give me money, which I'm always a big fan of, Subscribestar will do that. But I have to check the. I have to look into that again. So yeah.
I'm gay sent $10. You're gay.
Ah, well, thank you. $10 to say that I'm gay. All right. So, where's the stream? I've only been streaming for 47 minutes, so I don't know. I guess what I could do now is I can play just Hoi 4 and talk to the chat. I think that's what I'll do. Just play some Hoi 4 and talk to chat. So, what criticisms of Brian Kaplan's Open Borders book? Well, that was a while ago, Saxon Commander. That was, I remember one argument that he had that I found kind of funny. Was that he pointed out that immigration is good because it causes home prices to go up. And that home prices were a sign that people actually want to live there, and that that implies a greater degree of well-being. But yeah, just generally, like I go over. I went on this on my website talking about immigration. That immigrants don't increase native wages. That's a complete myth. It just doesn't happen. But just in general, like the case against immigration is that unless you're getting in like immigrants with a lot of money, which has a different set of problems, what you're doing is you're turning back the clock. You're turning back the clock on the labor, on the capital labor ratio, and that is no good. You don't want to be doing that. So you're basically like all the progress that had been done in the past by a country in increasing the amount of capital relative to labor. Basically, by mass immigrating, you're turning back the clock. You're turning it back to like the good old days when there was when labor was more plentiful and could be paid less. That's
Neo
basically what
Holstein
immigration
Heresy
is.
sent $6.
All right, thank you. What's the name? Neo Holstein. All right, so let's turn this off. Get rid of this. Let's go to this. Ah. Let's shoot it really small. Get up in the corner. Away we go. I can still see the chat. Don't worry, guys. Do you think the reason that boxers are violent is entirely biological? In broadly, yes. Narrowly, no. So, broadly, yes. Narrowly, no. Like, because the thing is, like, people create their own environment and they're influenced by each other and stuff. So that is going to like, basically blacks being around other blacks become more violent. Oh, I still have debug mode on. Oh, whatever. Whatever. So, I used info from your Congo video in the debate on the Congolese genocide years ago. How did that go, John Groiper? How did the Congo debate go? AltHype. Have read Ordinary Men? No, I have not.
Zum Ausrücken. Achtung! Ihre Befehle. Bereit. Zuhören.
Zuhören.
Ihre Befehle.
All right. Achtung. Played Vic 2? Yes, I played Vic 2 quite a bit. I even tried, interesting thing about Vic 2, I actually tried modding Victoria 2 to try to create, like, race, to try to turn the class system into kind of like a race system, where, like, you could, to make human capital, like, variable. But that, the engine just wasn't there. Oh, stop. The engine just wasn't there for Vic 2. That's why I'm kind of excited about Victoria 3, because the engine on that looks sophisticated enough that, like, you may be able to mod in like biological race differences and have that affect, like, productivity. And the thing is, like, with all these, like, map games, especially EU4, they have to find a way to, like, make it, because the thing is, they do the engine. If you just do the engine, it's like, well, why does Europe become so much more powerful than everything else? Why is Africa so backward? And let me turn down the sound. Like, why is Africa always so backward? Why is Europe so advanced? And so what these, you know, what Jared Diamond does is he constructs like this stupid story about, like, domesticable plants and animals, which I've been through to show that that's just absolutely not true. But what they end up doing is they have, like, you know, modifiers like this. Now this game doesn't have particularly bad
Anonymous
ones,
at
but
$5 EU4 is $20 for the whole thing on Humble Bundle.
yeah, I mean, I played EU4, so it's I know about EU4. But what they have to do is they have, like, these stupid, like, modifiers here, Which this is not a terrible way to do it, but what they have to get kind of absurd. Like they have to have like the primitive nation modifier and all these. They have to invoke the Tooth Fairy quite a bit in order to create the world as we see it, right? Whereas I think it would be interesting to make like basically a race and IQ mod, a hereditarian mod for Victoria 3, which then we can say, look, we don't have to have like modifiers, right? Just everything works in engine. You don't have to have like national spirits or any gay shit like that. You just do what you. Just let the engine run, and it will, all else being equal, it will create the world as we see it. So, and that would be an interesting way, and that would also help to like sort of make race differences real to a lot of people, because they'd actually be playing it.
I was playing a Hoi 4 game today in a modern day RP game as India. I killed Pakistan without even getting nuked. South Korea also got overrun lol.
Yeah. An RP game as India. Yeah, I think the modern day kind of overextends this engine. I don't think this modern day got like nukes, and not sure that really works. Let's do supply. I like the new supply system they put in here. It's a nice little ad. Build up those railroads. This is riveting gameplay. Watching me build railroads. Build a little supply hub over here. Very, very, very cool stuff. Very cool stuff. And I also have to do this for these guys because they won't do it. Dummy. Anyway, AltHype. I don't think literacy and life rating in Vic 2 is too bad. Yeah, they use life rating to kind of... and life rating is actually pretty accurate, and it's one of the reasons why Africa wasn't taken over by Europe until a lot later. It's like because they were all dying of malaria. So that is a decent system. When are you going to play campaign? When are you going to play campaign for North Africa? You should get done on the next 6 Civ 5 tournaments. Civ Dalton and others are playing one right now. Civ 5. I never really liked the Civilization series that much. I liked it when I was a little kid, but then when I got older, I found it to be kind of crappy. I kind of just didn't like it. I don't know where this... See, sometimes it shows you where it's getting supply, and sometimes it doesn't. So I don't know where... Just have to build everywhere for these boneheads. All right. And then we're going to go here. We're going to go here. All right. Pirate Close Combat 3, Cross of Iron. Thoughts on cryptocurrency? I don't know. Why would you ask for my thoughts on cryptocurrency? I mean, I use them, but I'm not an expert on them. Do you have a take on the new Atlantis theory? I wish you would have played Close Combat and stay. It worked well for the engine. But yeah. What countries do you prefer to play in Hoi 4? Mainly Axis continental powers? Yeah, in this scenario, I've tried playing as Austria-Hungary, but it's really kind of aggravating to have like an idiot Germany. Like, because if Germany's an idiot, like you're gonna have a bad time. World politic. It's riveting gameplay, managing all the beginning production queues, all the beginning production quees. Train, gotta build howitzer. I knew a guy who he didn't say howitzer, he said hotwiser. He'd always call it the hotwiser, and say, hey, you need to. We played World of Tanks, and there were tanks that had like these big, inaccurate, slow firing but high damage guns, the howitzers, and he'd call them, use the hotwiser, the hotwiser. I thought that was so funny. The hotwiser. So, who were the good guys in World War One? Well, I mean, the Serbs were. I don't know. I don't know. I know the Serbs actually were funding like terrorists, but like then you have to ask the question, like, is this rightful Serbian land? Maybe not. This is more debatable, but like, is this rightful Serbian land? This is more debatable, but maybe these two, rightful Serbian land? I don't know. I mean, I think that the Austro-Hungarian Empire was in their right to invade Serbia. Apparently, they didn't. The Serbs were funding like terrorists, but they didn't. They didn't order the hit on Ferdinand, because that's kind of crazy. But apparently, one of their cells basically went rogue and did it, and started the war, and that led to, what happened. So it was all a Rothschild fund. Ryan, you mentioned fasting. Were you talking about intermittent fasting? Okay. So I was like super fat, and I got unsuper fat, and I did it with 3 ones. 3 days fasting, 1 day not. And also I have conquered sweets. A war of white people killing each other is never good. Yeah, but it's just like it's just a game. Especially World War One is like completely like there's no passions for sides in World War One. Like you go around saying, I think Austria-Hungary was in the right in terms of how they were dealing with Serbia. Like maybe some Serbs would get pissed, but I don't think anyone has really any passions for like the sides and causes of World War One. But read Alfred Milner's Second War. Who are like the good guys? Marvel Brain Movement. Yeah. Novi Sad is Serbian as fuck. Hungary has it as a core state here. It's a core. It's a core. See, look. So it's just as Serbian as it is Hungarian because it's a core. That's one thing that I would do if I was to make a mod is I would get rid of the core system. They have a good compliance system for non-core territories, and I would just make everything degrees of compliance and just change what compliance gave you and how hard it was to increase compliance. Time we'll just go ahead and make more. So we're gonna need a lot of these. All right, I think we're. Oh, we need to trade. In the Navy. Hipper, do, and just exercise for days. So, lean will slow down digestion more and make you fatter. I had to put on a no resistance mod since even with the full cav map, resistance kept going up for me. Well, you know how to do that, right? With the occupied territories, you have to put in like these guys. Wish I could release this crap, but I can't. So let's look at our ships. We can't really build any good ships at the beginning, so what we're gonna do is we're just gonna go with convoys. It's weird because their ancestors had to migrate out of Africa. You'd think they'd have evolved high IQs. Australian abos? Australian abos apparently like technologically regressed. They actually lost the like the bow and arrow. They actually like became like less technologically advanced over time in that area. Apparently there used to be a lot more bad things in the area. I'm gonna get Moltka. There used to be a lot more dangerous animals in the area, and they just sort of killed them all. And then, like 1,000 years later, the people there just devolved. What am I doing? What am I doing? Oh, I'm doing this. Can we do this? Refit yards. Did you hear about Mr. Bond getting 10 years in prison in Australia over musical parodies? No, I did not. What were the musical parodies about? Apparently Australia used to be heavily forested. That is surprising to me. That is actually surprising. I did not hear about that at all. How do you lose the bow and arrow? Well, you lose the need for it. System 1.
Neo Holstein sent $5. Do you still watch Chinese cartoons? Have you seen Heldensagen vom Kosmosinsel, Legend of the Galactic Heroes?
Legend of the Galactic Heroes and the Collector of the 8 Crystal Shards? No. No, I don't watch Chinese cartoons anymore. Or Japanimation. I think that's what it's called nowadays. Japanimation. Mr. Bond wrote a neo-Nazi rap or something in Australia, not Australia. Okay. Well, those are basically the same countries. The Legend of the Galactic Heroes. What is that? I don't know. I'm old man Ryan. I don't know things. I don't know about all the cartoons you kiddos are watching these days. Yeah, the don't sleep on the road stuff. And they actually have advertisements that, hey, don't sleep on the road. Roads are for cars, not for sleeping people. Don't sleep on the road. And then the don't sniff gasoline, don't sleep on the road. Those are the PSAs they have to do. But yeah, it's interesting. Like, you want to know, like, what were like earlier forms of humans like? What were like cavemen like? And you know, if we didn't have such hang-ups about it, we would recognize them as like living fossils and just sort of study them and be like, as like a window into the past. Von Moltka. Did you eat anything at all on your fasting days? Like not really. Like back then, I drank coffee back then. Still, I've also conquered caffeine. That's one thing I've done. So I don't drink caffeine anymore. But early on, I would drink coffee with a little bit of cream in it. But yeah, like I don't know. I find that a lot easier to just go like completely fast as opposed to like counting calories or like, you know, just eat smaller portions. Eat smaller portions. Like you know, use a smaller plate. That'll make the food look bigger. These little rinky-dink things. Like for me, like I have to either go all in or like not at all. I can't moderate. I can't moderate a thing. I just have to do thing or not. I still have debug options. Not using those. Can I do anything? I need to start fixing up my Navy. Yes. Fasting is the quickest and most efficient way to lose body fat. Yeah, and it preserves muscle mass, and it also like cleans up your cells. So like if you're, right, so it's like a not just like an anti-aging thing, but like an anti like it increases your health span because you end up, it's something ridiculous, like 10 times the rate of destruction of senescent cells. So it cleans up a lot of stuff. So I need to start getting some, because I need to upgrade some ships. I want to upgrade with stuff that's not trash. Fasting preserves muscle mass. Fasting makes you... No. You actually release stuff. You actually release like hormones that actually make you prevent you from losing muscle mass. And also like just think about this from an evolutionary standpoint. Like if you're, you know, caveman, you have periods where you're like getting lots of food and then you're having no food, right? So you're constantly going back and forth between no food, lots of food, no food, lots of food. So this idea that like, let's go with, I have many good advisors here. Okay. Economists for now. Let's see if we can get some mill guys. Get another army guy. There we go. And then we'll go professional officer. Hey buddy, I gave you a $5 super chat. You better look into Harris, Klein, and Vox or else. I mean, it's drama from 2017, 2018. I don't know what's to really look into. What's really to look into there? I don't know really what to say. Saw a white girl who cried in class for being white. Said she wished to be anything else. This was in a red state. Yeah? Yeah, and what's interesting about those people is like you say, hey, guess what? Like the narrative, it's not true. It's like 95% not true. But like for whatever reason, what they want to do is they want to just like to cling on to that. And that's something that I find just so bizarre. That for some reason they want to cling on to that. Maybe I should increase my donation goal here so that people think, oh, he's not at his goal yet. We need to give him more money. But I'm just playing a game right now, so I'm not expecting anything. So being white is best. Nope, but it was sad to see she's Irish. But yeah, I don't know. I've never tried bringing that up to somebody. It's like, why do you want to hold on to this? Like, why do you want to hold on to this belief that like you're bad for being white? Well, what's interesting about her is that she basically gets it. Like all like the games and all the stuff. No, we don't hate you for being white. It's more about civs. Why am I not building civs? Like her reaction there, the reaction of like just some random person that she's bad for being white, like that is kind of evidence that that's what the narrative is, right? And like all the sophistications about it, that is, it's not, you're not bad because you're white, you're bad because of systemic oppression or whatever. But like her reaction is evidence of like what the shot really is. That the shot really is, you're bad because you're white.
I'm gay, sent $5 cum cums.
Fantastic. Money well spent. Money well spent. Flagellation looks good in front of others. Do you think this, whoever said that, do you think this girl was like was putting on a show, or do you think she actually like feels that way? Like I don't know. Crying is, yeah, turning on the waterworks. Like this is totally genuine because I'm crying, and you can't fake crying. Let's go with here before we get some RXP going. Revolution in Mexico. Oh boy. Oh, whatever. Have fun. Responding to you, I think she actually thinks she is bad for being white due to genetic ethnomasochism. Well, look, genetic ethnomasochism, it's not like some natural thing. You know, it's something that, like, it took a ton of institutional institutions to, like, get people to think that way. It's not. Yeah, it's not at all. Well, I don't know what you mean by genetic ethnomasochism. Like she hates herself because of her genome, or that it's like she has a genetic tendency to hate herself. Institutional institutions. Maybe she was just more causy. Well, I mean, that goes back into like the CPU ASIC thing. Like you get more CPU-y people. They can be convinced of more things. You know, things that like, well, that seems absurd, but you just don't understand all the intricacies of the thing. And when you understand, so you have an untrained eye. So when you have a trained eye, you can see. You can see that guys who chop off their balls are really women. Gotta have a trained eye to see that. My positive genetic inclination. The problem is that hasn't happened until recently, though. That's a very recent phenomenon. Have I finished that? Oh, I have. So I can start doing some stuff with my Navy here. So we'll start with the gazelles. Oh, that's expensive. expensive too. Well, whatever. Let's go all in. This upgrades to 902. Apparently, okay. Apparently the Königsberg's upgrade. The Bremens. That's fine. That's fine. Okay, so member ContraPoints. Yes, I member ContraPoints. What is the null hypothesis? The null hypothesis is like the default assumption. It's like, you know, like basically you have proposition. The null hypothesis is proposition not true. Alternative hypothesis is proposition true. Ersatz is German for replacement. AltHype is about to win World War I for the Germans and get the US behind them while redacting their freedoms. Yeah. The normie hypothesis. That's one way to think about it. Allegedly for philosophy too, molested. Really? Like physically molested? Like was ContraPoints physically, like actually physically molested? Do I need forts? I need logistics. I need to fix my infantry divisions here. I need to get rid of this. I need to add this, add this, and add this. Oh, screwed up. Down. All right. ContraPoints used to be nicotine too. ContraPoints used to be a dude. Well, he's still a dude. So is ContraPoints actually accusing someone else of like actually molesting him? Like actually? Like physically? You should read Deep Nutrition. It's about epigenetics. I mean, that's basically what anti-aging stuff like is doing, is largely about. It's mostly about, well, it's mostly about DNA repair. Right, it's mostly about DNA fixing stuff. And getting your DNA to do better at that. What's the Agadir crisis happening? scuffle over Morocco. And DNA repairs adenochrome. No. No, but yeah, what was interesting is I've been like back in 2012, I looked at like a lot of anti-aging research and kind of lost interest. But it's interesting, like a lot of the stuff that they were talking about them, like the NAD ended up like actually happening. Like it's actually out and like over the counter now. So yeah, I'm actually like vaguely optimistic about anti-aging research. And one thing I'm thinking is that that like because you got a lot of millennials that are finally going into like the science doing thing, they're finally getting into those positions, is that millennials are far more vain than Gen Xers or boomers, which is fantastic, right? So they're going to be like really focused on like, you know, reversing aging because they're like way more vain, and that's really good. Instead of being focused on all these like cryptic muscle pathologies that like 10 people have, right? They're going to be focused on like aging, which is great news. We're doing and that stuff until a little bit later. Oh no, sorry. What's your favorite kind of biome? I kind of like the Pacific Northwest and the Palouse. You know what the Palouse is? Well, I can always just do more naval stuff. I don't know if I can trust any anti-aging stuff after the whole vax thing. Well, I'll tell you what, the anti-aging stuff is taking a lot longer to get to market than the vax stuff is. Like it's actually like way way better. Well, I'll put it this way. They spent a lot more time on it. I can't say if it's actually better research, but a lot more time has been spent on it, and it's not like this political thing. What is NAD? Go look it up. Oh crap! Yeah, I need to do the Agadir now. Agadir. So my bottleneck appears to be the Hotwisers. Do I have? It just looks no. You're just going to win in 1914. No, this mod is actually it bogs you down. It bogs you down quite a bit. Like they will screw you up. Alright. I don't want to do anything with that. France, you can have whatever. Oops, that's not what I want.
Bereit zum Ausrücken.
what we got. Check out what we got. France got Morocco. We got... Woo! Check it out, boys. Our new real estate. Looking shit. What are we gonna do with this? We can invade Belgium through here. Are human rights real or a psyop? I think human rights are a the term human rights is a psyop. I don't know if
Jewish Australian Abo sent $5. How do you prevent Eastern European countries from adopting the same path of racial suicide that the NATO countries seems to have embarked on? It seems that the only thing protecting these countries from becoming minority white is them being poor.
well, part of that is learning lessons from the West, just seeing the West, and becoming kind of a refugee center for whites trying to escape the bad ideas of the West. And what I think is going to be important is when that happens, when you start really seeing a big influx of refugees into Eastern Europe, depending on how many they accept to take. I mean, that's a whole topic unto itself, what Eastern Europe is going to see itself as. Because they could become like kind of a new fulcrum of the world, kind of a new major power if you have a whole lot of white people trying to escape, the Browntown West. And, it's just going to be about like educating them why this happened, right? It happened because Browns and like Jews, right? It happened because bad people, and I think there will be some sort of natural understanding. Is like when you go to Poland or Ukraine or whatever and go, wow, it's really white here, and even like the minorities, like the Tatars or whatever, they're like very white Muslims and stuff, and so seeing what they don't have these pathologies. They have different pathologies, but they don't have the same pathologies of the West. Why is that? Oh, because they're all white. And it's just going to have to be there's just going to have to be like an education program. And I think in that environment, the thing is when you move to a new place, like I know that with cults, for example, when people move, that is a marker for being more likely to join a cult, is when you're moving to a new place, or whenever you have like a big life change. That's when you're more likely to join a cult. And so I think that a big life change is sort of when people are going to be more open to like a new way of thinking, because they're already in a new place. And so like things that would seem alien before don't seem alien. And so why not a new way of looking at the world, right? And kind of the great deconstruction of I guess we'd call it NATOism. I don't know if like because I think if Russia didn't exist, like NATO would be really putting a lot more pressure on Poland to pause it up than they are. It's like I think it's like, no, we need Poland or they think they need Poland because they think Russia's a threat. I mean, Russia's not a threat, but they think Russia is. So where are my ships? I'm an idiot. Well, plenty of convoys. Oh, I hate that. I hate when I do that. Okay. Damn it. I have 11. Don't really need any of that. Don't need anything here. Don't need anything here. I can always do stuff here. Industry. I guess I can do this. I don't really need anything. But I could build some forts. Actually, I should probably build some forts over here. How are we doing on equipment? I think we can tone down this. West didn't learn from South Africa. South Africa didn't learn from Rhodesia. I don't expect much. No, actually, the South Africa situation is a little bit more complicated. User 52272. South Africa, like that was kind of a backroom deal. The general public, they voted on basically a resolution to continue talks about like how to deal with apartheid. They basically, the public didn't know what they were voting on. They didn't know that their vote to continue talks would mean like all the blacks now have full citizenship, which means they basically run the country, right? They didn't know that's what it meant. So best book you have ever read? I don't know. Like I said, I don't really read a whole lot of books. Oh, I'm gonna need airfields eventually. Thoughts on cold approaching and hot topic to get quirky girls? Jeez. I don't know. Don't ask me. Have you been shunned or disowned IRL for your views? Or have you been able to avoid trouble? I've been able to avoid trouble. Like, I mean, the thing is, I don't, like what I found is most people just don't want to talk about politics at all. Right, and that's fine. So, and like when I and the thing is, when I talk to like if you ever get in a situation where you're talking about politics, I'll just talk about like, you know, I'll give like not novelty takes, but it'll be novelty takes that are not explosive, I guess. Okay, which is the best doctrine here for like World War I ships? Because I can't tell, and I don't want to do all this, like get out like a notepad and Write this down. Like Fleet and Being, it says battleships. Okay, that's like World War One, so maybe this is the best. Like, I'm not gonna be doing U-boats because U-boats don't work in this engine. Yeah, I know supposedly trade interdiction for subs, base strike for carriers, but World War One, so that's out. So it's down to these two. But like, is this actually better? Yeah. Plus, I may use subs. Who knows? This is kind of stupid because you can just train your navy and then rush all the naval doctrines and stuff and just destroy destroy the Royal Navy. So I need to start doing these. AltHype, what kind of music are you into? Music that most people are not really like into. like really not like stuff. I kind of like Of Monsters and Men. I mean, that's kind of a, I don't know, I don't really like follow bands or stuff like that. Do Zeppelins do anything in this mod? Yeah, they suck. That's what they do, just like in real life. Yeah. There's not really a good mod out about like if the Central Powers won World War II. There's the Kaiserreich mod, which is just which is a very well done mod, but it's just awful in terms of like the story with like I don't know if anyone's seen the Kaiserreich mod, but like but France and Britain, they go communist, but it's not called communist, it's called syndicalist. So you know, like some anarcho kiddo is like getting involved in this somehow. But like it's just retarded. Like Britain goes communist, and then there's like a civil war in the U.S. and one of the big factions is like is a communist faction in the U.S. It's just retarded. It's just so stupid. Like the idea that Britain would ever go communist at this time is just a joke. So, and of course, and like Italy has a civil war, Spain has like a 12-way civil war. You know, China's even more of a mess than in the original timeline. You know, it's just so stupid. It's too bad because it's like really like well done on a technical side, but like just the world is just a complete like candy cane land of retardation. Did they really? Is Azerbaijan like superpower Azerbaijan in Kaiserreich? The Voyager. Well, I don't think I'm breedable. I don't think it works that way. The Balkan League has formed. It is necessary to draw conclusions. playing badly here. I'm mismanaging my... I'm getting into a time where I need to start building more stuff. Have you ever heard of Bruce Gilley? He's a godsend for fighting off colonialism there. Bruce Gilley. Alright, so I'll look into that. Bruce Gilley. Hoi 4 takes so long for one game. Yes, it does. Bruce Gilley, born July 1966, a professor of political science at Portland State. Wow. His article, The Case for Colonialism, published in an advanced online edition of Third World Quarterly, was highly controversial. The outrage culminated in threats of violence, which caused Gilley to agree to its retraction. Well, shoot. I mean, now more people are going to read it. I mean, I'm going to read it. The Case for Colonialism. I mean, it's still available online, so I don't know what the retraction means. Here, let me find it. I'll put it in chat. The Case for Colonialism. Yeah, I'm sure it pissed a lot of people off. Elden Ring? Probably not. I mean, I don't know. I mean, Elden Ring doesn't seem like a very interesting game. It seems like it's like you level up and... I don't know. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of volition with the games like Elden Ring. Like, I prefer to play like a heavily modded Fallout 4, where it's like it's the same engine, but it's almost like an entirely different game the way I play it. Sort of, it's the first mod is Frost, and then like a whole bunch of other mods. But like, there's so much more stuff you can do with that. Like, there's so much more volition in that than there is in what I think there is in terms of Elden Ring. I mean, there's character customization, but you're not. I don't know. It just doesn't seem. It doesn't. It seems too much like an arcadey sort of thing. Thoughts on Keith Woods? Not a whole lot of thoughts on Keith Woods. I thought he was a little bit of an eco nature nut, but that's okay. Whatever. Do you still think American identity and obsessions with founders' intent is a cult, i.e. Americult? Sort of. It's kind of like the Old Testament and the New Testament. Are you allowed to start another Discord server? Probably. The thing is, when mine got banned, it was banned with like a whole bunch of other servers, so it was clearly like a dragnet, so it wasn't like a targeted thing. They banned like 20 servers in like one day. So, yeah, I don't know about that. Go on then, give your take on Central Powers' win in World War One. Okay, Central Powers win in World War One. Well, I mean, there's the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. My view is that the Soviet Union doesn't exist. So they get the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, and the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk was like. How far did they go? Did they stop at the Dnieper, or did they take like this? I forget what Treaty of Brest-Litovsk looked like. Let me go look it up. Because I know Germany wanted to white peace with the West, so they didn't. So that's probably what would happen there. Oh, got a chat. $3. Have you heard of neurofeedback? You can definitely change the brain. You're just looking at the wrong scientific literature. I'm living proof. I didn't say you couldn't change the brain. That's not what heritability means. It's talking about observing. Oh yeah, the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk was taking like all of Ukraine. Okay, so yeah, so that's basically what it would have been. So yeah, and these would have been like. So I'm thinking like the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and this actually sort of goes back to like what Hitler was saying with the master race, and this is sort of what I suspect, but I haven't seen anybody to find like other good evidence of this. But the thing is, you know, when you think about where Hitler was born, he was born sort of like, was it like up here by Linz or like Salzburg? But he was sort of near the border, and he actually served in the German army, even though he was Austrian. But when he's talking about the master race, like I'm thinking, here's like here, a little bit here, and then like here and here. This is like the German part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and they rule over, and they're basically the dominant group in all of it. And Hitler would go back and forth between how he used race. Like for example, he talked about like races in terms of European ethnicities, but then he had like a meeting with like the PM of France, and they were talking about and Hitler was saying that we should avoid a war for the well-being of the white race, and he would refer to saying that it was ironic that he was forced into a situation where he was allied with Japan to participate in the destruction of the Asian empires of the white race. But then he would go on and talk about the Slavic race, and then he would talk about like, you know, the French race and the Italian race. So he would use those terms back and forth. But anyway, so back to the Central Powers victory in World War One. Like if you think of it like that, like here's like a little Germany, and they're ruling over all these other ethnicities. And here's a big Germany. The Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, they'd be ruling over all of this. So that's what I think he meant by master race. And of course the term master, that word in the English language, it's a lot more loaded than it is in German, I have heard. And it's also become more loaded retrospectively. So Hitler was using a term that has more negative connotations in English and more negative connotations at the current time than even the term master in English had in the past. Still in California, so I'd be down to meet up, and I don't mean for sex. Well, that's not something that I would talk about on the super chat, my location or anything else like that. Sounds like Treaty of Brest-Litovsk would have had the Germans paying for a bunch of lower IQ polities. It would be if you're talking about like not necessarily. Like, what do you mean paying for? Right? They're just part of a bigger empire, and these are just poorer regions, and the poorer regions just, they pay less taxes and they get less stuff. But another thing to keep in mind is that Germany would have like access to more resources without having to trade and pay the tariffs and all that stuff. So, and also like the people there, they're not like genetically stupid, so they would eventually become an asset. Like, it's a project. It was an empire building project. So that's what you would have. I think in a Central Powers victory, the western borders wouldn't change. Western borders would basically remain. Now it depends on when this happens. Like, does Italy join the war? Like, if Italy joins the war in a Central Powers victory, I think they would get crunked pretty hard. Like, and I have a suspicion that like a lot of the leadership in Germany and especially in Austria-Hungary would not have it, would not be kind to Italy. I think Italy would get a really bad peace deal, way worse than France. So Italy would be truncated to some degree. A Central Powers victory kind of demands the U.S. doesn't enter the war. So, but I think the U.S. would be more militarized than they would be historically, simply because Europe now has this giant, empire right in the middle, and Austria-Hungary is basically a satrapy of Germany at this point. So, it's basically like all this, a big chunk of Italy, kind of like this. Then, of course, Serbia, and then like all of this, right? And so you're dealing with basically Britain's foreign policy nightmare, which is like a hegemon on the continent, right? And it would become a reality. It was already becoming that reality was already kind of starting to emerge with Germany and Austria-Hungary kind of acting as a single unit. But I mean, it would really emerge, and I think the Austro-Hungarian Empire would persist, and I think it would persist indefinitely unless it was broken apart. Like, people saying that the Austro-Hungarian Empire was like some doomed or dead empire, it's like are just so full of it. Like let me put it this way: the Austro-Hungarian Empire has survived far greater pressures, like relative pressures, economic and just war pressures, than the United States ever has. And the Austro-Hungarian Empire did not like internally collapse because of that. Like, the pressures of World War I did not collapse the Austro-Hungarian Empire. It had to be broken apart by a treaty, right? So basically the Austro-Hungarian Empire lost, I forget what it was, like 1.5 million men out of a population of 50 million, right? Which is really bad, especially since these are like, your prime age males. And they still survived, right? When everyone is saying, oh, they're doomed, they're doomed, they're doomed. So they survived all of that. and then they finally get broken up by treaty and go, see, they were doomed. So, no, I think this would be here to stay, basically indefinitely, unless it's broken apart by foreign powers. So, that's my view of that. Do a video on the Crusades. It's a minor aspect on the Europe bad oppression narrative. Yeah, the Crusades is a pretty easy. It seems like it would be a pretty easy thing to do. Like, just do a map. Like, here's the expansion of Islam everywhere. Here's the Crusades. Right? Like, I don't know. That seems like be a short video. It's not a really like, just like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how you can really even could possibly compare the two. It's like orders of magnitude, like different levels of aggression. I think Germany might eventually absorb the Austro-Hungarian Empire after a victory in World War I. Possibly, but there would have to be new unforeseen events that would cause that to happen. I don't think there's any foreseen events following the end of World War I that would cause Austria-Hungary to be absorbed by Germany. Yeah, Austria-Hungary lasted longer than Russia, right? That is definitely true. But say that Russia was a real country. The truth is Russia like had less, national. Well, here they have stability, but they probably had less like unity and support for their government than. Like, let me put it this way: I think Czechs had more support for the Habsburgs than like Russians did for the Romanovs. So, do you know any good books on the Russian Civil War? Seems really interesting. I don't read books. Books are gay. I think that's pushing it. Well, I don't know. Who broke apart internally? Who didn't? You could say Russia was facing more pressures than Austria-Hungary. I don't know, not in terms of relative like manpower losses. I like books. All right. Let's get a move on. What? Yes, that guy. That's who we want. What IQ would a person likely have verbal comprehension scores more than the 98th percentile? Just look at like a percentile. So 66, 130, like 134 or something. We want an attacker. You. Sort of here. That's my production. Come on. Czechs are good Slavs, never joined the Eastern heresy. Anti-democratic raids. No. No to democracy. We don't like democracy because it's not actually democratic. That's something that that's something that that I think you can do. Talking about like talking to people in real life. Oh, I need more troops before I can do that. Is pointing out that democracy is that democratic governments are actually less like democratic than dictatorships. That dictators respond to public opinion more than Congresses do. And I think it's because Congresses like they can hide behind elections. It's like, oh, if you don't like it, we'll just vote for the other guy. You know, oh, you don't like open borders, well then just vote for the Republicans. they'll Didn't you say? Yeah, there are things that I said before the great YouTube banning, where they just started banning everything. They started banning all the channels. And I basically had to kind of shut my channel down. I figured that was because the thing is, like, what people don't know is that when I deleted fucking everything, like videos were getting like struck in real time, like as that was happening. Right, so it was either that or the channel is just literally gone. So I chose to have like sort of the remnants of it. China never had a democracy. 5,000-year-old civilization that responded to threats and changes, but they had no legalized anal. Do they have legalized anal now? Now, response videos might be useful simply to promote something cross-platform. Like when I get to making more videos on BitChute, for example, having a video there, like there's an incentive now for people to go over to BitChute to see them. Logistics. Ah. All right, I think it's time to mill up. No hope left on YouTube. It's all paused up. 700,000 so-called Timbuktu manuscripts proving American history. Or African history. No real thoughts on them. I mean, they're... Look, if there's something, just look into it yourself. I mean, they're probably... My knee-jerk reaction is that it's overstated or some sort of hoax or something done by Arabs. I don't know. Like if you're this far along, like it took this long to find any documentation of stuff happening in Africa, it's probably a sign that not a whole lot was happening in Africa. Have you thought of reacting to video on stream? Not really. Like, what's the point of reacting to stuff? Like, if I want to respond to something, because most people, what they do is they machine gun, like, a whole lot of facts. They machine gun facts, right? So, like, how do you deal with that in a live setting? It's the same problem as with, like, a live debate, you know? Like, there's occasions that, like, when they say a whole bunch of stuff, there may be, like, a thing here or there that I can go, oh, I know that's not true. Let me show you why it's not true. But usually, like, especially, like, imagine responding to Destiny, where he's, like, citing, I don't know, where he's, like, citing all sorts of, like, treaties, and here's why Russia is wrong for not respecting NATO or something, like, because then it talks about, like, and there's a conference in Budapest where, you know, the Russian Federation agreed to this or that. It's like now you have to learn about the Budapest conference, like, and figure out what it actually said, right? Or because, like, I'm not going to take Destiny's word for it. So that's the problem with, like, these live react things. Befehlen. Befehlen. Wow, Navy stuff. Let's look at our ships here. Let's go with the Nassau's. So pre-dreadnought, 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 pre-dreadnought. Alright, let's go ahead and do something with these guys. These. How much would it cost to put on another battery? Fairly expensive, but it basically doubles their heavy attack. And it's way cheaper than building another ship. That looks bad. Let's do it here. There we go. And we'll just put on some secondaries. Nassau B. Pre-dreadnought crap. Helgoland. Basically the same thing. Helgoland B. We just use this template. Yeah. This is our class. All right, and that should keep the Kiwi occupied for a while. It's a philosophy tree. You kind of need a mod to make the refits cheaper. Well, I'm doing the refit yards. This would be December 12th. Get some of these done. Then I'll work on some of the crews. I'm not gonna be able to refit everything. But that's just the reality. And my bottleneck is still, geez, it's artillery. It's my templates because of this. But we're gonna keep pressing on. Jared Taylor actually does important stuff now, is the difference. How do you start streaming on Cozy? Nick said, hey, do you want to stream on Cozy? Back in February, I said, okay. But I know that streaming like requires you to like be regular. So I didn't start until I knew I could be regular, so. And all I have is naval stuff. I've done all the naval stuff. I'm gonna tech rush something. Well, I'm gonna tech rush something. It should be. I don't make any oil, so that's the point in that. I'm gonna tech rush something. Tech rush that. Can you turn your volumes up? Sure. You know, there's an app you can have on Chrome, and I'm sure it works on Brave, that actually can raise the volume of a site. Ryan, are you the ghost of Kiev? Yeah, just like the ghost of Kiev. I was never actually there. A real ghost. We have to do this. This sucks. Why make me make more trains? Yep. Twitch is full of bots and simps. Most certainly is. Yeah. Do you know any other languages? No. Actually, I need to do this. Get this going. I took some Japanese a long time ago, and I can remember a few Japanese words. Like I know computer is computer, so I remember that. Ich ni san yon go roku nana hachi kyuju. That's counting to 10. Japanese. And I know that the letter Q is like, you know, looks like it. It's like a little angle. There you go. That's my Japanese. I can basically speak Japanese. Man. These, I think we're gonna need to, yeah. Alright, guys. We're sucking down way too much artillery. Okay, now we can, that's more reasonable. Now I can actually produce some more airplanes. Get those queued up here. I've seen Jared Taylor do. Yes, I did. I did. They were surprised that he knew Japanese, and they were surprised that he was actually very, very, very reasonable. Very reasonable. Very sensible.
Ihre Befehle. Befehle.
Attack or defense. You delete your order.
Bereit. Bereit.
Alright. Jared Taylor watched Death Note. I was surprised at how good Death Note was. And then when they got the second one, where they got the who's the guy who is like the mastermind crime solver? Okay, like L or something. But yeah, the problem is like, once they got the second L, like the first L, he was actually cracking the case, and there was like a logical process to it all. But then the second L just like knew things, just like yeah, or Nero, whatever. He just like was like magical, like knew everything. That was kind of dumb. Room. Victoria Louise. Ooh, okay. Let's upgrade the Victoria Louises here. Potentially. Are you by? I have my sources. Best movie ever made? A movie I saw recently that I was surprised at how like not terrible it was, given how bad movies are, was The Death of Stalin. I was surprised at how good that was. I just quit my Findom addiction. Never in a million years I thought I would escalate that I'd become Ryan Falk's pay pig. $9. $9. That was the... That was quite a ride, huh, Mr. Potato? Oh man. I'm gonna go get a... I think you bought me like a cheeseburger and some sides or something. Not that I eat cheeseburgers anymore, but all right. Death of Stalin is Yid? Is Yid garbage? Why? I mean, it didn't seem to really have any like political anything. It was just like a bunch of dysfunctional like Politburo guys. Like, it's kind of like, maybe I like it because it's kind of like how I imagined in my head the Politburo to actually be. Like, it's just a bunch of guys like flying by the seat of their pants, not knowing what they're doing, and just offing each other. And what made you realize Evangelion was bad? Nothing. I just got... What do I eat, Saxon Commander? I eat asparagus. And I drink mineral water. There you go. I eat asparagus and drink mineral water. No, I mean, I eat salmon, like canned vegetables, and, you know. But one thing about fasting that it does is, like, after 3 days of not eating anything tastes good. So it's a great way to like reset, like how you find things taste. Thoughts on Sean Last's debate with Rose Wrist? That the one a while ago. I think that was one where he went in. He thought he was just talking on like a private convo. Didn't know it was, and had no idea it was gonna like be a public thing. And so he was not prepared for what that actually was. Can I do... I can't. I need to do this. San Pellegrino or Perrier? No, actually Evian. Because there's like this really cheap supermarket where I live. You get a lot of stuff for cheap. And so it's like $3 for like a big case of this Evian mineral water that nobody's buying. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to push here. The gay arch toward the end. Yeah, Evangelion is just like an aesthetic thing. It's not really a good story or anything like that. All right, I have to do some doctrines here. Fasting wrecked my health in 2013. I developed an autoimmune conditioning and it gave me adrenal fatigue. I fasted for 6 days. Well, if you're fasting for 6 days right out of the gate, most people don't do that. Like, I went 3-1, 3-1, 3-1. So that would be... That's what I would do. Just go 3. And that's what I would recommend. Focus on the middle left path. Yeah. Well, I'm getting this. Well, this is carriers. Carriers. And this is subs. So I may just do these and then do the subs at my leisure if I decide to try to go subs. But subs don't work in this game. Of trains. You need to take electrolytes if you're fasting. What was your most popular video? My most popular video was probably like the one on like the Black Panther thing, just because the search tags. Oh, naval. Do more naval stuff. All right. Should I? It's way too expensive. All right, let's do some rune. Rune. Thoughts on Hyperborea? It's made up. So the rune B is 704 for the runes. For the Blucher, the rune B. Oh. Blucher. Is that just one shipping class? I think so. Hussard for the rune B. Good enough. Hussards. Is only one Hussard? The Scharnhorst. Go away. Scharnhorst. I'll get to the chat. Rune B. Prince Adalbert. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get all these. Get it out. And the first Bismarck. Bunch of cruisers. I hate niggers. Unfollowing right now. At the rate these guys are doing it, you might just have to take me into a private show, says Potato. Look, I'm not. Look, I put the donation bar at 50. They reached 50. Then I started just playing Hearts of Iron 4. So what? Like I don't expect that. I don't expect them to really like to people to be really interested in this stream, right? I mean, I don't expect to really get any money for this stream. I'm just playing a game and like talking to chat. Like there's nothing. There's no expectations here for anything. This is like the laziest content ever. This is like max laziness. It's almost no people pay a quarter of a DLC. Yes. I mean, this is like ice chill. I can ban. Ooh, I can ban things. And, well, I have so much political power here, I might as well just take them down a little more before banning them. clicking around menus. Four, 48, 96, and then these 5. I don't know what to do with these guys. You. These guys can
Bereit zum Ausrücken. Ausrücken.
cover the coasts here.
Ausrücken. Ausrücken. Ausrücken.
Nah, he's just some random guy who realized academics are fags. Oh, Weebnet, going to having, I think having minority political parties, it causes like it reduces stability when the war starts. You get a bigger stability hit for war. Are you going to do any further responses soon? Not soon. No. You once mentioned that you were 1/16 black. No, that was like some family mythology. Is what that was. That was yeah, screw you, Britain. We're building the railway. Would you consider doing some debates on politically provoked? Maybe. Maybe. But the problem is like machine gunners. People just like machine gun like all the facts all the time. Like there's no way to dig into anything because there's no time because of the format, so let's go here. Ooh. Oh, naval. Am I building mills? I'm not building mills. I'm building infrastructure, but I kind of need this. Kind of need these things. I don't have enough to do what I want. These pre-dreadnoughts, they're not worth upgrading. These. Is this? Oh, gee, that's way too much. I'll do some light cruisers. Yes, this for these upgrades. Is it worth upgrading destroyers? I don't know if it's worth upgrading. What are you doing? Not upgrading. Oh, because I didn't. Because I'm an idiot. I don't think it's worth upgrading destroyers. PP encourages people to share resources before the debate, so you can read about it, think about it. Yeah, but the problem is any live discussion is going to go into angles where you don't know what you're going to say. I think it's a limiting factor, but video responses are just better. Right? Because you can look at whatever they say, and it's not dependent on like what you either know at the moment or what you can make up at the moment or what the audience will believe at the moment. I I think it does. I think this has naval bomber research. Weednat. Yeah. There's the navs. I don't use them, but... And now... we got the Fokkers. What do I want to do for my ships? Oh, jeez. Why would they do that? Why would they build ships with, like, no guns? You're already building the hull. Why would you spend all that on a hull with, like, one gun? It seems very expensive. Right, maybe you say. Do you think it would be a good idea for Destiny to join Cozy? Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely a good idea. Would it be a good idea to have Nick Fuentes on a to have Destiny on a platform that is run by Nick Fuentes? Yes, that would be a very good idea. Like, are you kidding? Fire control. Are we refitting destroyers now? We have a few light cruisers that we can do. Okay. Schwab class. Christ's sakes. How much will it cost to do this? Ugh. Man.
Neo Holstein Iracy sent $5. Does Mike Enoch and Eric Stryker have a future with the NJP, or are they crying in the rain in your opinion?
I think they're, well, I don't know enough about the NJP, but I think they're crying in the rain. I mean, I don't see how it's much different than just like the pool parties or whatever. Let me put it this way. I think that in order to sort of push the pile, so to speak, like there's like a series of problems that you have to solve. Is first off, you have to, you have to have a content piece that is comprehensive and is going to convince people when they get the content piece, right? And you have to set up some sort of system by which people are kind of made to consume the content piece, right? So step one is creating the content piece itself, and like it has to be comprehensive and it has to like deal with everything, because what I talked about, all the arguments coming together and reinforcing each other. So, and when you talk to people in the real world, they always spiral off. If you ever talk about, It always spirals off. If you ever talk about race and IQ, you're going to end up talking about segregation. You're going to end up talking about the whole narrative because it's one single thing, right? And when you attack like racial equality in the brain, you're attacking the entire narrative, right? You're not attacking like one specific thing, and they won't stay on one topic. So you have to deal with everything. And so the content piece has to be comprehensive. But a comprehensive content piece is going to be really big. So how do you get a lot of people to consume a content piece that is really, really big once you make it? Well, you have to create some sort of incentives. And one thing like the NJP might be good for is you create a political thing, kind of like what Richard Spencer did with the alt-right. The thing is, there was a lot of interest in the alt-right. Unfortunately, Richard Spencer didn't lay the proper groundwork of like the content piece that he could point people to. Like, oh, you're interested in the alt-right. Okay, here is the alt-right alt-right knowledgeable certification program, right? You create the certification program for your thing. I like the name TLAU. They're lying about us. The reason I like TLAU is because if it gets big, then a Wikipedia article is going to be about it. And when there's a Wikipedia article about it, what are they going to what are they going to say? They're going to have to say the name. The name says they're lying about us. And what I would like to do is have that be the short name. The long name would be they're lying about us. In particular, this Wikipedia article you are reading right now. Right, that would be in the name, right? So even in the Wikipedia article, it would have like basically, you know, a protest at the very least. And so you have like a political thing, and it's creating a lot of buzz, and there's a lot of interest. Okay, so given that you have this interest, where do you send people to learn about it? So that's why you have the comprehensive content piece. Richard Spencer never had that. He was generating a lot of buzz, but there was nothing for people to go to, right? So what I'm doing is I'm creating the thing for people to go to, which is going to be a comprehensive content piece, and that's going to include a hereditarian case in reverse. Like the little things that I was doing with the switcheroo, like it's going to be like the switcheroo of all switcheroos, right? I basically take the hereditarian case. What I'm going to do is write the hereditarian case, race and IQ, then make those arguments, except flip the data or make the data to where they're like the races are the same by all these methods. And so what you're doing is you're saying, here's why races are all the same in the brain. And you go through all kind of the hereditary mechanisms, for example, like subtest heritability, factor analysis, intervention studies. You do all the things that are used to make the hereditarian case, but then fake the data. And then at the end of all that, which is going to be like a 30-page like Word document thing, you then go switcheroo, all of that, like we flip the data. But the thing is, hopefully, you know, like for the people who don't see it coming, when they get the switcheroo, it's they already understand the structure of the argument, and they already understand why it's compelling. So so basically, yeah, that's the problem with the NJP, is that they don't have a thing to shuffle people to once they make a whole lot of noise, and they're not making a whole lot of noise. But so you need both, right? And you need like the certification system, where it's basically going to require people, it's going to require a test, right? Where like you go through like the course, which is a lot of content that you're seeing like primitives of it on my Telegram, a lot of content they have to go through, and they have to certify that they understand the arguments, all right? And it's going to be a series of questions, and the questions, you know, multiple choice, obviously problem with multiple choice is that the answer key just gets spread out through, you know, across the internet, and then the test is worthless. So unfortunately, I think it's going to have to be like open-ended questions. It's going to be a lot of open-ended questions where they just have to type out like the answer to things. And that way they can be, okay, now you are certified as knowledgeable of TLAU. And what that does is if any journalist writes anything about TLAU or whatever, you can attack them for not being certified. You're not certified. Now, for some people, they're not going to care, and they're just not going to listen at all. And there's nothing you can do about that. But a large number of people are going to go, well, wait a minute, you're writing about a thing that you're not even knowledgeable on, and it's going to draw some interest to that, to go, well, what is this certification thing? And say, oh, here it is, and you have to go through this and this, and then there's tests, and there's tests either at the end or after each section or whatever. So that's sort of my thinking, and my thinking is that's what you have to do, and I can't see any other way. And trying to dick around with like a long march through the institutions, okay, that's ridiculous. That's not going to happen. And so I see NJP as being problematic because they don't have that punchline at the end. They're not making a whole lot of noise in the way Richard Spencer did. So they're not making a whole lot of noise, and they don't have sort of the punchline. So what I'm doing right now is I'm setting up the punchline before making a lot of noise, and then so that there is a purpose to the noise. It's to direct people to the course, and they take the course, and the point is just to certify that they are knowledgeable about the arguments of TLAB. Right, that's the point. They don't have to say they agree with them, but the thing is, part of in the process of understanding, people are going to start to agree with quite a bit. So that's the idea, and that's the only purpose I can see to sort of real life movements, is to direct people to a content piece. Whereas NJP and what Richard Spencer didn't have a punchline. So that's my thought on that. So, do you think Spencer was controlled opposition? No, I don't. I got that vibe from your old videos on his downfall. I wish I did not give off that vibe, because I did not mean that. What I was saying is that Richard Spencer's behavior was very much in line with what he was doing if he was trying to intentionally detonate his movement. That's what I was saying. But I don't think he was a controlled op or anything like that. And the fact is that he's lost a lot of money. He's lost like all his money over all this. Are there any studies that validate heritability estimate, just like IQ is validated by its predictive power? Like, I don't know what you mean validate heritability estimates. Like, so I don't know what that is. This is the Great War Redux mod. That's what this is. I don't know what ships to do. Is my queue full on ships? Yeah, it's full. Okay, whatever.
Angetreten. Bereit zum Ausrücken.
Nope, the Second Balkan War. How does what you said stack against your anti-credentialist stance? Aren't you creating new funny hats? Sure. New funny hats, that's fine. But the thing is, it's more like a sort of like a comp TIA sort of thing. It's just, are you knowledgeable about this specific thing that you're talking about? According to like the group that you're talking about. Right. So yeah, it is a credential. But the thing is, I'm not like opposed to any and all credentials, like full stop. Right. The problem comes when you have some organization that is telling you, like what is history? History is events. History is all events that have happened. And it's like, well, in order for you to be able to talk about all events that have happened, you have to be certified by this organization. That's corrupt, right? And that's very different from, we're going to create a certification that to make sure that you know the things that we consider important about our group, right? Like, those are very different things. Those are very different things. The funnier the hat, the more powerful it is. Romania is at war with Bulgaria. Oh. Yeah, Bulgaria loses. Yeah, Bulgaria loses as well. You bit off more than you could chew. So now you're getting Balkaned. Oh, yeah. Yep. All the colors of the Balkans doing their thing. Just having a rave. Right, and it's a much more limited funny hat as well. It's a much more, much more limited. Why did Spencer take a photo with Laura Bush? I don't know, man. He comes from a rich family that has like connections and stuff. Do we want to do? Yeah, we want to do aviation cult. And then we want to start doing these. Oh. First. I just wasted a lot of army XP. I think it'll be fine. Warfare. Yeah, one more. All right. Balkanoids. There's stuff going on down there. So you go to the Balkans and you just go up to someone and say, "Hello, nice day, isn't it?" Respond, "You just made an enemy for life." where you said fasting and defeating the Turks in EU4 gave you a boner. Yes, both are true. Unfortunately, I have to be allied with the Turk roaches here. Take back Constantinople by force. Okay, we're getting to time. All right. Are you gonna invade Turkey this game? Probably not. The game kind of ends once you win the war. That nigga can't stop sniffing. I'm gonna need this. That's the wrong flag. It's the wrong flag, buddy. Alrighty. Anything left for my navy? Oh. All these freaking like bespoke designs are just such a pain. Like, why can't they just have like standard cruiser? Like Rune B, Victoria Louise B, you know, why do they have to have all these unique, weird, quirky? Okay, looks like I've upgraded everything. All I have left are destroyers. In which case I want to do the S90s. All torps all the time. Do you think the general preference for whiteness in dating will mean it can survive a diaspora situation? Well, what do you mean survive? Like, whites clearly have survived lots of diaspora situations. Imperial torpedo boot. How many kids is too many? No such thing. No such thing. Depends on your race. Wow. Finishing off those railroads. I'm building your railroads because you're incompetent. So yeah, it's 1914. Getting ready for the big showdown. What's gonna happen? I don't know. It looks pretty peaceful now. Maybe we should role play and just like not build up the military and be like, oh, things look fine now. What are you talking about? War? What would there be a war over? Over Morocco? Come on. Prevent the Armenian genocide. I'm going to be able to finish off this army. Finish off the text, yes. Land doctrines done. Do we have the... What genocides have actually happened in your opinion? I don't know. I'm not a connoisseur of genocides. I just know that like the Holodomor like happened, but it's like grossly overstated. Like they're talking like 4 million when it's really like The problem with the Holodomor is that, like, we know, like, births over deaths. So the Holodomor may be, like, 1.8 million at the highest. But I don't know. Whenever I look into a genocide, I always find out that, like, nope. like this is not true at all. Like, the Native American genocide, the Congo genocide, the Holocaust. I mean, if I looked more into, like, the Gulag Archipelago, I'd probably find that's a bunch of bullshit, too. So I'm guessing that is. I just assume, like, it's like, at least half made up. That's my assumption of all genocides, or whatever. I don't know. Maybe the Khmer Rouge was real? I mean, the thing about, like, the description of how the Khmer Rouge did it is that we're going to line people up in front of pits and then shoot them. Like, so it already has a few points of, like, believability, whereas the Gulag Archipelago is like, you know, the Gulag Archipelago and the Holocaust are like, we're going to send these people to camps and we're going to torture them and starve them and make them work. Right? Which doesn't make sense. Are you going to starve them and make them work? Then what's the... It's stupid, you know? So, yeah, my guess would be probably some that are real. You know, I don't even know about, like, the genocides of, like, the Tatars, because some of those may be rumor spread by the Tatars themselves just to make cities surrender. It's like, you don't want to end up like these guys. Like, we buried them alive, so you better surrender and pay tribute to the Khan or whatever. I believe in forced labor camps, and people probably starved because it was a war. Do you think the Japanese World War II atrocities are legit? Almost certainly overstated, as always. The Society for the Dissemination of Historical Fact. That sounds Japanese. The Society for the Dissemination of Historical Fact. That sounds Japanese. Oh, maybe not. Oh, wait. Web Library of Modern Japan, or Japan History. Okay, but it has, like, a European with, like, the scales of justice. Although if they're trying to appeal to, like, Westerners, maybe they... So, I don't know. But just that name is, like, long, you know. Just add on, you know, Rocket Ship Cowboy or something, then you know for certain it's Japanese. Goyo Motor is real. They're trying to meme the new Kiev pictures as a Holocaust, of course. I think it'll be harder nowadays to do that in a place like Ukraine. Maybe not. Maybe they'll pull it off. But it seems like it would be more difficult nowadays because there's just cameras everywhere. And so, like, people would be asking, it's like, well, if, like, this happened, like, where's the... Like, people are going to be asking for much more evidence than they ever did in the past. That's the problem. So it's a lot harder to make up... It's a lot harder to tell stories nowadays. I mean, they were able to get away with it for a little while with Iraq, but ultimately they weren't able to get away with it with Iraq, with, like Saddam's shredding machine, where he would, like, people who opposed him, he would put into, like, the shredder and shred them alive. That's another problem with, like, these kind of hoaxes is that you get stories that are just dumb. And they talk about, like, Saddam's sons had, like, personal torture chambers where they took, like, just as, like, for fun, they would, like, take people off the streets and just start, like, knifing them or something. Like, it's really... I'm not. This is not. I'm not playing very well. I'll have a shredder though. The funny thing is that like a lot of like the really like vengeful passions against political opponents like probably exist more in the United States than anywhere else on the planet. So like it's really weird for like Merkins to accuse others of like politically motivated atrocities like that. When in reality, the United States, once the United States starts blowing up, like that's where you're gonna get the most crazy, like murderous shit. Because I don't think there's anywhere on the planet that is more politicized and fractured than the U.S. And it's just held together with like product at this point. Once the product goes, there will be some difficulties. Do you own any guns? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I own guns.
Ihre Befehle?
Okay, we're getting much. Once we get to June, I'm gonna have to start positioning. Actually, this stops. Yes, Ottomans join. Get Bulgaria in when the Saxon began to hate. I can't afford to switch over. I have to keep producing the outdated rifles. My ships, these are not going to be done in time. So I'm going to have to call them back to port and just sit for a while to repair and finish the refits. The middle class's wallets are getting hurt, and I believe political change tends to happen after they get poor. They say. It's like, well, I don't want to do all this radical stuff. I've got a mortgage, and I've got, you know, assets and stonks and all these things. And I could just see like Bane coming up to him. It's like, well, we'll have to remove that impediment or something to that effect. I see. Your decadence stands in the way of real change or something like that. I don't know. I can't do a Bane impression. We must remove your material shackles to send you on the greater path or whatever. No, that's actually a bottle of mineral water. Should I buy gold? Oh. Not something to really argue against. I mean, I don't know, is gold still a hedge against inflation? This is suboptimal production. This gives me sure I need that. Can we upgrade our artillery? Yeah, we can upgrade our artillery. We can afford that. Urbane impression has promises. Cultivated. Actually, that sounded terrible. That was way worse. What now? What now? What now? Oh, I just generally have all these stupid. These are dockyards that show up in the Pacific Islands, but they're not cores. And they don't. All right, so we've done the focuses. I guess. I don't know. What do you want to do? I'm not gonna do this glitch. That's not. Not do that. Construction engineering. It is June. I need to start getting my focuses up. Let me do. Construction engineering. We'll build some. Well, we're not building anything, so stupid focus. I mean, we're training troops. So just do that. Whatever. What content creators do you watch, listen to regularly? Nobody in particular. Like, I don't really watch a lot of content.
Ihre
Befegem.
Befehle. Achtung!
Gesundheit. Befegem. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. The July crisis. Alright, let's get these.
Ihre Befehle. Befehle.
Alright, so you're gonna be hanging out over here. Hopefully the forts will be enough. What's our supply like over here? Time to start motorizing it up. These guys over here.
Angetreten.
Orders.
Bereit zum Ausrücken.
Alright.
Bereit zum Ausrücken. Angetreten.
Let's change your color. Red. This'll do.
Zuhören. Ausrücken. Zuhören. Ausrücken. Bereit.
One thing that was interesting when I looked into is that wow, it's able to supply that.
Bereit.
Huh. I guess I did a good job with the supplies.
Ausrücken. Achtung. Bereit. Ihre Befehle. Ausrücken. Zuhören. Ausrücken.
One thing I was looking at in like World War I divisions were a lot bigger than World War II divisions. Like 18,000 men versus like 10,000. I think that may be a holdover from like closed order fighting. Right. The final T-Dial doc having a section on motivated reasoning? Nah. I don't think that would be worth the space required to properly deal with that issue. Yeah, we're gonna need a lot of rifles. And here we go. Let's see. Russians, are you gonna do anything? They're not attacking. Well, good luck. I'll try to win in the West fast. Yeah. Good luck. Oh shit. All right. Oh, I might want airplanes. All right, Belgium, you are in the way.
Ausrücken.
Shouldn't have put your country there.
Bereit zum Ausrücken. 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 Angetreten.
Man.
Vorrücken! Bereit zum Ausrücken. Bereit zum Ausrücken. Ausrücken! 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 Bereit!
The hell?
Vorrücken!
Luxembourg. Okay.
Ihre Befehle?
Kaiser says jawohl.
Ausrücken!
I get cut off.
Bereit zum Ausrücken. Achtung! Ausrücken!
Jesus. Luxembourg just doesn't wanna
Bereit zum
just
Ausrücken.
doesn't wanna die.
Angetreten.
Want Wander goals? Yeah, sure.
Befehle.
Brussels.
Bereit zum Ausrücken. Zuhören. Befehle.
French. All right. There's Brussels.
Achtung. Angetreten.
So Luxembourg lasted longer than Belgium. Uh-oh.
Ihre Befehle. Ausrücken. Achtung. Bereit. Zuhören. Bereit. Bereit.
Well, you see, it gets really bogged down in this mod.
Angetreten.
Oh, yeah. You know what? We have all these convoys. Let's just, let's just get them. Let's just, see how many can get through. Alright,
Bereit zum Ausrücken. Bereit. Ausrücken. Ausrücken.
dang it.
Zeigt es ihnen. Ihre Befehle? Ihre Befehle. Greift weiter an. Zuhören.
Play.
Bereit zum Ausrücken. Ausrücken. Zuhören.
There we go. Are we winning?
Ausrücken.
Maybe. Look at the casualties. See, our convoys are already going like way down. We're holding here just fine, and the Austrians, well, if they get to the mountains, you'll be fine. They'll be fine. Just don't look at that too much. Just avoid looking at that too much.
Ausrücken.
Oh, they're defending. God damn it.
Zuhören. Ausrücken. Befehle?
And Luxembourg is still holding. Jesus. Luxembourg survives after France gets knocked out.
Bereit.
Man, everything's still green. But yeah. Now we're getting bogged down.
Achtung.
Alright.
Befehle?
Just gonna need to throw you in.
Ausrücken. Ausrücken. Ausrücken.
is bogged down now. All bogged down. All right. Anyway. So, thoughts of... Do you ever watch Helsing? On Helsing? No? No, I have not. Let's have a look here. Alright, is there any way we can go over here?
Ihre Befehle? Bereit.
Let's see. Logistics. Motorize everything. Okay, that's the problem. Everything runs Luxembourg. I don't know what to research. I don't really. Russian infantry.
Bereit.
Alright.
Bereit zum Ausrücken. Ihre Befehle. Zuhören. Ihre Befehle. Ihre Befehle. Befehle. Achtung! Ausrücken! Bereit zum Ausrücken. Los, los, los!
Los. How long do you think current meta cult will last? Well, the thing about these things is that like nothing happens, nothing happens, nothing happens, and then everything happens. That's how these things go. Yeah. So we're already getting bogged down here. Whoops. Well, that's what happens when you get tunnel visioned.
Bereit!
Uh,
Ausrücken!
it's fine.
Bereit zum Ausrücken! Ausrücken! Ziel anvisiert. Angetreten. Bereit.
You know what? No. No, you're not getting into Luxembourg.
Los, ausrücken.
All right, we did it. We took Luxembourg. All right, good. So this will make our supplies a lot better here.
Befehle?
No, don't tell people to send shekels. There's nothing to send shekels to here. There's no content here. Yeah, if Dutton's ideas on religiosity are the same as causiness, then that's basically... Like, that's what religions always were. It was just causy people who thought in spiritual terms in the past. Today they think in less spiritual terms, and that's that.
Befehle!
Okay.
Ihre Befehle!
Not been paying attention here.
Vorrücken! Bereit! Bereit zum Ausrücken!
Okay, 161, 9, 1, 3. Jesus.
Angetreten! Zuhören! Ausrücken! Zuhören!
Alright, thoughts on the Unabomber.
Ihre Befehle?
Unabomber. Was that I forget. But my thoughts on like people who engage in like those mass killing operations is that to some extent they must be thinking about like the KD ratio. You know? Okay, this is going badly. Really badly. Hmm.
Bereit! Ihre Befehle! Ihre Befehle! Zuhören! Ausrücken! Angetreten!
Try to manage that somehow. Whatever. Do what you want to do.
Befehle! Suchen Deckung! Ausrücken.
Well, all right. Is Voucher pedo? Probably. Probably. I think I'm done streaming now. So, hopefully, starting next week, get the presentations up and get some actually like quality streams, as opposed to like this lazy stuff that I've been doing. So, I had a like a long like 15-hour trip and stuff, and it was kind of an event. So I think kind of feeling low energy and stuff. So yeah, I'll get to work. Stop screwing around here. All right. Goodbye, everyone.